System validation is a process that organizations go through to ensure their products are safe and effective, as required by regulating bodies like the FDA and CLIA/CAP. As such, any software used within this system must be validated as well, a process known as Computer System Validation, or CSV. The overall goal is to prove the software works as intended for the end user. It is common practice to use a V-model framework, like GAMP, to organize the computer system validation process. It helps system owners methodically document the software's intended use, test that it meets the intended use, and provide unalterable evidence that it did, in fact, do what was intended. As with all projects, computer system validation begins with establishing the validation protocol or plan. This step outlines the approach, activities, and acceptance criteria for executing the validation process. It is a roadmap that includes procedures, timelines, responsibilities, and required resources. Next, it's time to document the specific functionalities and expectations of the end user who will ultimately interact with the system. These requirements serve as the foundation for system design to ensure the final product meets the end user's needs. Then, any unique configurations used to tailor the system to specific needs, like permissions, must be documented in a configuration specification. At this point, it is time to build and configure the software. Of course, if you're using a third-party software vendor like Labit, you'll have to work with them to obtain key information regarding the software development lifecycle. First, you'll need to obtain a document that outlines the software system requirements and details how the system accomplishes user needs and expectations. Then, you'll need the software's infrastructure specification that delineates the necessary infrastructure requirements, for example, the hardware, software, network, and environmental specifications for the successful deployment and operation of the system. At this point, the software is designed, tested, and built. Now it's time to move back up the V and verify each specification in the system has been addressed and works based on intended use, beginning with infrastructure and software installation qualification, or IQ. This step is focused on verifying that all software and infrastructure components are installed correctly according to specifications. Next is the operational qualification, or OQ step, where the core software is tested to verify that it functions correctly according to the SRS. Similarly, in the configuration qualification, or the CQ step, all unique configurations and settings of the software are tested to verify they've been implemented correctly and functioning as intended. Now it's time for the final phase of validation testing, the performance qualification, or PQ, sometimes referred to as user acceptance testing, or UAT. Here, end users evaluate the software to ensure it meets their needs and functions as they require it to. This step demonstrates compliance with user requirements before releasing it for general routine use. Finally, it's time to create a validation summary report that provides a complete overview of activities and unalterable evidence that the computer system meets all predefined requirements and operates as expected. At this point, it's important to note ownership of the different validation phases. The development and testing of the vendor software is customer agnostic and therefore owned by the product's organization. Software vendors like Labit should have this information available to you. The requirements and unique configurations are specific to the particular system being validated, and therefore the CQ and PQ steps are the responsibility of the process owner. Companies like Labit's creators, Semaphore, have extensive experience with software validation and have services available to help companies navigate these steps. Contact us to learn how Labit and Semaphore can make software validation easier on your team.